Applications of Lean in Discovery Research by Brian Dwyer. The Lean principles in discovery research, in particular discovery research within the pharmaceutical industry. To start off, it is important for you to understand significant business environmental pressures that the pharmaceutical industry is under. First off, the return on investment is low in the pharmaceutical industry, making the industry a high-risk business. Due to a low success rate of discovery to manufacture, which is just below 4%, there is a significant need for continuous improvements in the process. Now, the return on investment is directly related to the below 4% success rate. Ultimately, there are a lot more failures than there are successes. What this means is the success that actually takes place has to cover all the costs that are associated with the failures and to have money above that as earnings. So the environment is quite pressureful, and there's a lot at stake, and there's a lot of pressure from the marketplace through investors to improve this percentage of success. So we can apply Lean, and these Lean applications are actually needed to provide the solutions to the problems above. First off, fundamentally, there needs to be a long-term philosophy in place. There's no way a pharmaceutical company is going to get good at making drugs without having a long-term philosophy. A useful time frame to reference is the discovery of some sort of new target, to developing a new drug, to go through research and development, to go through clinical trials 1, 2, and 3. We're talking 10 to 15 years before something even gets to the marketplace to be sold. So fundamentally, the smallest time frame that a pharmaceutical company should be looking at what it does is 10 to 15 years. This is a good time frame. It's a long time frame. It is actually quite out of phase with normal technology and discovery development companies, which are usually on a 3-year to 5-year duty cycle. The long-term philosophy is also needed because this development of drugs is quite complicated. And you want pharmaceutical companies not just to be getting drugs out to the market, but you'd want them to be getting better at it over time. This can only be ensured by a long-term philosophy. Next is the right process. This is fundamentally Lean, and this one speaks to me very directly, and this is the thing we're going to be focused on in this presentation of all the things that we can focus on. So we're going to talk about the right process. Within the discovery space, we're going to talk about a strategy which has Lean in mind and guided by Lean principles. And through that strategy, we're coming up with a vertical process, which I will describe in future slides, where Lean processes will be applied. To give a little bit of background or perspective or context around where we're applying Lean discovery applications or Lean and discovery research, you need to see the big picture of the process. So one big picture is from discovery to manufacture. You have what are zones called mystery, and this zone is where you are having questions and you don't have answers. And as you do experiments and you move forward, which is part of the vertical process we'll talk about next, we move into rules of thumb, or what are called heuristics. So this is where you continually see a lot of publications in the literature. People are solving problems, going after understanding certain hypotheses. And then, as you probably all know of, if anyone has taken aspirin or drugs, those are manufactured. So once you have an understanding of how things work, you move towards an algorithmic state, which is you can make products that need to be manufactured the same way every time. So if you look at the business value, at the discovery side of the pharmaceutical business, our value is low because nothing that we're going after is marketable. Also, what we choose to go after may never be discovered in a way that is going through the heuristic process going to become an algorithm or be something a product. So there's no guarantee in anything we pursue is actually going to result in something that's sold in the market. So the business value is low, but as you move towards the algorithmic state where you can actually have products for sale, the business value is high. So you can imagine that in the algorithmic state, or where you have a manufacturing of a product, sort of like Toyota's manufacturing of cars, you can have lean processes. You can imagine how readily that is applied there in that area. But the area I'm focused on is the discovery area, and that's the real premise, is can we put lean into the discovery space, which is between the mystery and the heuristic. So it is a weaker fit, but there is a fit because in the end you do follow a process. You don't just go willy-nilly through mystery to heuristic. So from our last slide, we saw that we want to go from mysteries or questions or hypotheses to rules of thumb or general understandings that usually fields of study elucidate over time. So if you are the chief executive or a president of global research and development, what type of things do you want to go after in the discovery space, given the risks that are innately involved? Also keep in mind the backdrop of the low return on investment. So in essence, there's more failures than there are wins. And those things that win need to make enough money to, one, be profitable over all the costs that have gone into the failures. So what a lot of folks are doing now is they're moving into a certain area of discovery where I will describe the impact. So it's really a compilation or a division. It's a ratio between risk and benefits. And I'll talk about different types of innovations, because you can imagine developing a new drug as an innovation. One of the lower risk activities that a discovery group can do is take a drug that they already have and make it better. So that's an incremental technology improvement or incremental innovation. In this case, nothing has to be discovered, it just needs to be improved. So that is a lower hanging fruit. It's less risky. You usually have intelligence inside the company because they already have a product. And it's sort of a de-risking the portfolio by having more incremental improvement or life cycle management drugs, things that are taken from one state and made a little bit better and transforming patients' lives that way. However, the payout or the return on investment from these types of innovations is moderate. It'll allow you to sustain yourself, but you're not going to be able to move your company into a new competitive space by going after that. And also, you have to have a bunch of incremental improvements in order to have them add up to cover all of the losses that are taking place elsewhere in the discovery space due to failure to actualize the drug from the research itself. So a lot of them aim for transformative innovations. So these things are generally, like, for example, right now there's a lot of discussion around gene therapy. So instead of taking a small pill to modulate your disease state, you could have a defective gene taken out and replaced. And that's going to be considered transformative because it's a significant change to patients' lives. And also it's a new technology. So you tend to be first in class, or what we call best in class. And what that really means to a company is that insurers or payers will pay because you are the first in class, meaning there's nothing else to take, or you're best in class and everyone wants your drug. However, built into this is an issue around difficulty, so the risk is higher, but also the benefits are higher. So one way of looking at this is it can be, an even distribution of risk if you have a good strategy around it, and then you can apply lean to that. Now, there are other innovations that you hear about, which is called disruptive innovation, and then that really is somebody who comes out of nowhere They might know enough about a field to go after something, but they kind of don't know enough not to try something, and so they actually discover a new space that other people wouldn't come to think about, and it ultimately is superior, and quickly, over some rounds of improvement, take over the field or the space. But those are usually coming out of things where people are going after transformative work, and they just get lucky. Now, the reason I bring, as you can see, from the point of view of a CEO or a head of research, aiming at transformative every time versus incremental does two things. One, you're aiming for something that would be best in class or first in class, which guarantees the most significant payout by payers and the easiest transition to value, and would we have a good return. It would have alleviate the pressures on the rate of investment and a return on investment. And the benefit is also, as you're going after transformative items, you may eventually hit upon a disruptive innovation, which would be the best scenario, which is a blockbuster drug, which normally means several $billion a year return on that single drug, and it generally goes up every year as well. So by having this strategy, which is part of their long-term philosophy, is to aim for transformative innovations with the hope of disruptive innovations being in there, here and there. You'd have the higher impact, higher value driving items to go forward. So now we move into the process, and again, the process is guided by the impact that's desired, which is the impact from a transformative to disruptive innovation. So first we'll talk a little bit about the strategy, which within the strategy is housed this process we will talk about, and we'll move forward into describing what that process is and all the implications that lean can have for them. It's useful now to talk about strategy. I've given you some background of discovery and about an approach. So this is strategy of being transformative, falls into a larger strategy. And basically, I focus on a strategy which has 5 questions. It was developed by Roger Martin out of Harvard Business School, but also he started his own Rodman Business School, and he has a lot of books out there and been a consultant forever. But the questions are, what is our winning aspiration? So fitting this particular presentation is to develop life-saving drugs. Where will we play? In this case, it's rare disease or oncology. You pick your disease area, but it's in the discovery space, all of this. How will we win? So like I showed you in the last slide, people are going to win by going for transformative therapeutics. And also, to give a perspective on how we go about doing that, we'll talk about developing the right process. And I'll argue we should use verticals, and I'll describe what verticals mean. Full systems, pull systems, which is part of Lean. In the vertical, you'll see how I'm applying that. And what capabilities must we have? So again, this is something where Lean can be applied. You have systems that are needed, relationships with other organizations that are needed, perhaps technologies that need to be brought in. All this has to be done well. Management systems do we need? Again, we have a 5S or new technology systems, and I'll talk a little bit more about how we're pulling in Lean there. All of these questions are answered together, so you got to understand this is what makes it a strategy. And again, Lean can be applied to this strategy because the strategy needs to be comprehensive. It needs to be attacking all of these questions in a way where each of them are appropriately aligned with the other, and also that no one question is superloaded or underloaded compared to the others. In essence, all of these are a unit. If you're familiar with music, it's a harmonic unit with 5 notes, could be considered a chord.